Good afternoon. It's another edition of Driving Maul on Loud Radio after a week's break because Sharky had to go and run around and do things with whiskey in Joburg. Good afternoon, Sean.
Hello, bud. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Welcome back.
Probably the only decent reason to miss a rugby show, I think, would be some fine whiskey.
Yes.
Maybe a beer or two.
Yeah, look, it has been 2 weeks, and in between that, there was the small matter of a Currie Cup final. So congratulations, Sharky. Awesome display by Natal at Newlands on Saturday. Let's be honest.
Was a great display, but I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit later.
Look, you can't feel begrudged when your team is completely outplayed like that. There was no sketchiness. Although I did think that Jonathan Kaplan crying at kickoff in his last game of first-class rugby probably caused his eyes not to work properly on a few occasions. But that didn't take away from the result. At the end of the day, the Sharks were just a different class on Saturday. We got a pretty packed show for you today, folks. Heineken Cup, Aviva Premiership, French Top 14, ITM Cup, Currie Cup, November Test, Bokke, Robbie Kempson, all of that crammed into an hour of rug banter. We just want to touch on the Heineken Cup because we obviously missed round 2 with not having a show last week. And there were one or two results that were of interest. The first one was that obviously Exeter, after getting a win over Cardiff, came unstuck against Glasgow, and you were quite stoked with this result because...
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, the Glasgow Warriors most famously made known in South Africa because of Just Strauss moving over. But another South African and Hammy's boy, Tyrone Holmes, played for the Stormers and Western Province last year. Got man of the match and scored a try, and it's a great victory for Glasgow against Exeter.
It was. And then the other interesting result was Clermont versus Harlequins. 23-16 the final score, but it looked like it was going to be a completely different situation when Clermont raced to a 20 points to 3 lead inside 25 minutes.
Game on, and then it kind of just sort of fizzled down and sort of Harlequins sort of clawed their way back in quite well. It's expected from them. The English do have a good fight about them in rugby games. Let's be honest, they generally give up. They generally very seldom give up the ghost. So they were always going to be in that game at the end.
Well, and Nick Evans grabbed a loser's point for them with a snap drop at the death.
And he's had a couple of good weeks. He's still on exceptionally good form, and he had a very good win, a great game this weekend past, which we'll touch on in the Aviva Prem.
And then Toulon went to Cardiff. Cardiff obviously had been upset by Exeter the week before, and Toulon had a massive win over Glasgow. And surprise, surprise, Cardiff got up over the reigning champions, 19 points to 15.
Crazy. The French side's travelling is another story altogether. I mean, we talk about it week in and week out. But Toulon to lose that game is a tough one. And as we discussed, there's 6 groups in the Heineken Cup. The number 1 is guaranteed to go through, and then the 2 best losing out of the 6 will make it through. So you can't afford to lose.
At all.
Yeah,
Toulouse aren't in the competition.
Can't afford to lose.
You can't afford to not win. And then the other result that I just wanted to touch on was a 26-all draw between Racing Metro and Scarlets at Scarlets. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is that Scarlets have scored 5 tries in the competition so far this season. All of them have been scored by a Williams.
Yes,
and they're not the same Williams.
No, they were 5 separates.
I think there might be 4 players.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I actually looked at the team sheet. I was like, what? Forget it. Next.
And Sunnyball wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
So what it means in terms of the groups, because Leinster also got a decent win over Castres, Connacht thumped Zebra, Perpignan beat Edinburgh, Munster beat Gloucester, and Northampton had a pretty decent win over Ospreys. What it means is that Leinster have got 2 from 2 in Pool A, with Northampton and Castres 3 points and 4 points adrift. Group 2 is wide open after 2 games. 6 points is the top, 5 points is the bottom. And Exeter is the top of a group that includes Toulon, Glasgow and Cardiff, of all things.
That could be a very, very dangerous group. But I think Toulon have both their games have been away.
No, they played at home when they beat Glasgow.
Oh.
But yeah, that group could be fun to watch, given that Glasgow are certainly performing better than they did last year, and Exeter are thoroughly enjoying their sojourn in Europe. Toulouse, Connacht and Saracens are fighting it out in Pool 3. And then Harlequins find themselves bottom of Pool 4, which, their season could pretty much be done and dusted 2 games in.
That's crazy, considering they were in massive contention last year. They lost in the semi-finals, and they'll obviously be pushing in the top of their domestic division too. It's crazy to think that, but if you look at the fact that Scarlets were a bit of a surprise to be topping that group, even though it's by 1 point. But Racing Metro and Clermont, that's the group of death. Horrible.
Yeah. And then the other group, Group 6, also is another tight one with 6 points in first place and 4 points in fourth place, with Gloucester bringing up the rear there and Perpignan taking the lead. And Edinburgh picking up a win, which I don't think they managed to do last season.
No, they didn't. We remember quite well that last year their first 2 games in the Heineken Cup of the 2012-2013 were resulted in not 1 point scored on the board.
That's the Heineken Cup wrapped up. They don't play again until the 6th of December now with the November internationals. What are they call them? The autumn internationals in Europe.
Yeah. It'll be the Heineken Cup will be another doublehead. It'll be a 2-week sort of wander off outside of their domestic league, so it should be quite fun. But
it's a 5-week wait before we get to see what happens there. On to the Aviva Premiership, and the big news that's coming out of England this week is James O'Connor is quite fittingly and appropriately joined the Exiles for the season. London Irish have snapped him up on a short-term contract, and we'll see where things go from there.
They could definitely use someone, and obviously, I heard London Irish's name on our local radio station yesterday, which they would never have made it unless they had actually secured Jean de Villiers possibly. But it's great for them. Obviously, his class and his skill is second to none, but we need to wait and see what else happens. It's come at a great time. I also think in terms of O'Connor going there, I know he's not contracted to the AOU, but he's definitely going to be in the back of Ewan McKenzie and the management's mind should Australia pick up, say, 2-3 backline injuries this week.
Although they'd probably, what was it Misty said, they'd probably concede first.
I'll field 9 players, Ewan McKenzie with a scrum cap on walking out to play.
But results that did happen this weekend in the Aviva Premiership, and a bit of a shock this one, London Wasps beat Leicester 22-12. And when you consider that Wasps was second from bottom before that win, it's quite a huge win for them. Newcastle got up over London Irish 13 points to 11. Must have been a thriller.
It was the end of that game. Irish got a penalty pretty much in the middle of the park, 5 or 10 meters in, and just before they were going to take the penalty, the ball blew over and the ref walked up to him and said, "You've got 5 seconds to kick this ball." Literally put it down. One of the guys ran and put it. He took 2 steps back, ran forward, tried to kick it over, just short. So it was wow. It was heartbreaking. It was very interesting. I'll try and get that clip for you guys, and I'll pop it up, and just follow the hashtag of Driving Maul on Twitter, and you'll pick it up.
Exeter thrashed Worcester Warriors 6-0 hiding. Harlequins got back to winning ways after a good cup. I think they'd lost 3 in a row, including 1 or 2 in Europe. Northampton, this just blew my mind when you consider that Saracens had won 5 from 5 and scored bonus points in 3 of those 5. They got absolutely pounded by Northampton.
From start till finish. They were not ever in the game.
41 points to 20, 6 tries to 2 thrashing. And then Bath versus Gloucester was basically the George Ford versus Freddie Burns show, because no one else got on the score sheet. 15-13.
And those 2 are the next 2 in line for the England jerseys behind Flood, who's 2RC to Owen Farrell. So those are the 2 guys that are next in running for their 10 jersey, but that's also a massive derby for them, and great win for Bath. They get bragging rights until the return leg.
And then So what it means is Sarries are top, Northampton are now second, Bath and Exeter make up third and fourth, with Leicester trailing in fifth, and Harlequins mid-table. Worcester way off the pace already. They're already, you can mark them down as relegated.
Yeah, they
played 6, lost 6.
They were actually discussing it. A few sites and some guys on Twitter were chatting about how that they need to start making arrangements for playing in the lower league next year. So it's kind of like what False Bay did in the Super A last year. They knew they were going to get relegated. They made changes halfway through the season and just took it out, and then obviously won promotion straight back into Super A. But it's the right thing to do. If you know you're going down, you're going to have to make arrangements for that.
There will be a Viva Premiership games this weekend, even though England are playing Australia at Twickenham in the Cook Cup. Friday sees Worcester trying to get on the back on the horse. They entertain Bath at Six Ways. They're probably going to find 6 ways to get thumped. Sale take on Exeter also on Friday, and then Saturday in the build-up to the test match, it's Gloucester versus Wasps and Leicester versus Harlequins. That could be a thoroughly entertaining one. And then Sunday, Irish entertain Northampton Saints and Saracens entertain Newcastle Falcons.
It's a great opportunity for Irish to get over Northampton. They will definitely have earmarked this game, knowing that Northampton would have lost a lot more players to the England setup, and maybe, I'm not sure, no one else is playing this weekend, so none of their other sort of expats or guys playing from Wales, etc., would have gone. So Irish will be looking to try and roll Northampton. They're playing at the Majeski Stadium at home, and obviously with the new acquisition of James O'Connor. So let's see what happens. I'd like to see where O'Connor runs out, but the coach on his interview when introducing him was quite good at saying that he could possibly play centre, wing, fullback, and didn't really mention fly off. So
or scrum off.
Yeah, he could play anyway, so he'll fit in quite comfortably. But they'll obviously want to put him in an important role.
As long as he doesn't play the fool anymore. On to the French top 14, and the big news talking about misbehaving players to come out of there. 77 test cap Welsh scrum half Mike Phillips has been sacked by his club Bayonne for attending a video analysis session while under the influence of alcohol. The club claimed that he was warned about it last season and he promised it would never happen again. Alain Afilelu, the owner or manager, chairman, whatever you want to call him, of Bayonne, said that the players will have understood that we are sick of this shit.
Boom.
Quote, unquote.
Say it how it is. Now, actually, a little off air, we were just chatting about how I've never really heard any issues from Phillips before. He's not, like, nothing's really made its way down this side. But obviously reading that and realizing that he may have crossed the line last year, it's understandable. He is taking them to court. He's going to contest unfair dismissal, and we'll take it from there. But there was immediately talks of him joining a Super Rugby side straight afterwards. But we'll see what's happening. And just a tweet coming in now from, Lee Byrne retweeted it, but Mike Phillips low-key but has retained his sense of humor. What's your future, Mike? Not sure. But Whiteland have been on the phone. Woodland. He's obviously a coach somewhere.
Results from the top 14, and Janne Vermaak helped Toulouse get up over Toulon. 13-12 was that score. Castres, playing at home, thumped Biarritz. Clermont got up 36-29 over Brive, but they looked like they were on the way to losing their unbeaten record. And then Brock James, how was that? I mean, we saw one of those from Tamati Ellison in the Super Rugby earlier this year, but that one was out to Nalaga around the back pass, and you saw him look up before taking the hit, so he knew where the guy was. Yeah. But what it means is that they are now 66 games unbeaten in all competitions, which is 1,000...
At home.
At home, yeah. Which is 1,440 days. Essentially, 20 more days, and it'll be 4 years to the day that they last lost a home game in any form of rugby at top class. Oyonnax lost to Grenoble, which we would kind of expect because Oyonnax have been up and down all season.
Well, they were playing away from home, so you don't expect them to. Did any away sides win this weekend? No. There you go.
Bayonne got up over Montpellier. Racing Metro beat Stade Francais. Perpignan beat Bordeaux. What it means is Toulouse are actually top. Clermont is second. Toulon are third. Perpignan, Montpellier are level with Toulon on points. Grenoble, Stade Francais and Racing Metro. Jeez, it's tight in that league. All the way down to 9th, even 10th. They're still in with a shout for the playoff halfway through the season.
Well, it's one massive win against a big side, and you all of a sudden leapfrog 3 people. But the big thing for me is Biarritz. And Biarritz, you have been there and thereabouts for a number of years, and they're sitting bottom of the log. They've won 1 out of their last 10, but they didn't register any points this weekend against Castres. They took a 39-0 beating, and they're gonna be struggling. They're also gonna be dropping. Well, if they don't turn it around, they're going to be dropping out because they're already 9 points off second from
They've
bottom.
scored 7 tries in 10 games this season.
Terrible.
And I think that's the third egg that they've registered. And again, obviously with France not playing, there is some French top 14 this weekend. Toulon take on Bordeaux, Castres take on Clermont, which means it'll be
massive game. That just discussing because Castres are in 9th position, big win against Clermont, and they all of a sudden shoot up 4 or 5 places.
Well, essentially, it's the sides that can start picking up wins away from home that are going to make the semi-final spots.
Racing Metro are taking on Biarritz away. There you go.
So lots going on there. Folks, we're going to take a break, a little bit of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts double header, and when we come back we're going to have Robbie Kempson, former Springbok, Western Province and I think Sharks front ranker.
Yeah, he won his first Currie Cup there, but in his first year for the Sharks.
On the line, talking about the Currie Cup, Western Province, the Sharks, props for the Springboks, touring sides, etc., etc. And he pulls no punches, so stay tuned. It should be fun. You're listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Loud Radio, to the Driving Maul, live on Loud Radio. We'll get there.
Jesus,
all over the place.
You did last 22 minutes without making mistakes, so well done. It's almost good to be back.
Totally. Hold on to your seats. Strap yourselves in. It's time for Robbie Kempson to share his thoughts on everything South African rugby related.
Robbie.
Oh, we've been stood up.
Robbie, how you, bud?
How are you, bud?
Good, mate. I'm sorry to wake you up this Thursday afternoon.
No, not a problem at all.
Okay.
Robbie, welcome back to the Driving Maul. Interesting week for you. I mean, you couldn't really lose when it came to the Currie Cup final on Saturday, could you?
Sorry, you said I couldn't get anywhere?
You couldn't really lose when it came to the Currie Cup final on Saturday?
No, but good result, though, wasn't it?
No, it was outstanding. Look, even as a Province supporter, I can only hold my hand up and say the better team won, and they won it properly.
No, they definitely did, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, a bit of a surprise for most. Definitely was the best one.
I was Rob. Obviously, the game this weekend was the final and was 2 of the top sides, etc., etc. But where did Province go wrong in terms of were they just completely outclassed, or was their execution off, or do you think perhaps their tactics were slightly off?
No, I think the tactics were slightly off. I think just from the manner in which the Sharks approached that game, particularly the way that they lost in Durban. I think they probably just wanted it a bit more, but certainly it's quite the defensive line. What the Western Province do is they keep the scrum off in the defensive line, particularly protecting the blind. And all they're doing is kicking that ball into space, and there's no one sweeping. So what they should have done after 15, 20 minutes was make that jump straight away, and would have negated a lot of the forward that the Sharks had throughout the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that was the point that I was trying to get to, because I was in the standing section under the Darnie Craven stands, and even from there in the deep dark recesses from behind beer-infused eyes, we could all see that the tactics needed to change, and at the very least at half-time come out with something different, but it just didn't seem to happen. But let's take nothing away from the Sharks. I mean, Pieter-Steph du Toit, I don't know about you, Robbie, but the idea of him and Eben Etzebeth playing lock for the box for the next 10 years just fills me with all kinds of excitement.
No, it is very exciting. Pieter-Steph's got a younger brother. It's just finished in school this year. Apparently he's bigger and probably the athletics. He's another one coming through for next year. He's also going to the Sharks. But certainly, I think the way the youngsters stood up, I was quite impressed with Sean McLeod and the way he played. Lambie at Flaff, and I know some weren't impressed, but I certainly was. I thought the way he kept the Sharks in the front foot. And I think there were a lot of unsung heroes in that Sharks side that didn't get as much credit as Pieter-Steph, but certainly for him to play the way he did and to get himself around the park the way he did, I'm looking very forward to this overseas tour and what Heineke does with him there.
And you mentioned Sean McLeod, and I thought he had an exceptionally good season, not just the final. Do you think he was unlucky to miss a call-up? And obviously, the second part of that, Pat Lambie playing at Flaff, he's a bit rusty, but keeps getting overlooked by Heineke. Do you think he'll get more opportunity now?
I'm doubting in this overseas tour. I think the conditions are more conducive for Heineke to play the normal way he's played, which will just, the Flaff's kicking territory. Certainly, probably unlucky not to make the tour, but I understand his thinking. Two very old, mature scrummers going, which would be a first and second choice. When you look around the rest of the country, no one really has impressed as far as a youngster coming through. So, for sure, or even a Nick Groom to go on the tour, I think is the right choice, which has made taking a youngster that he can develop as opposed to an older guy, which Sean McLeod is, and start building towards a World Cup side.
Yeah, and I mean that in itself answers the whole debate around Rory Cockett as well as he's been playing. He's also 27, 28 years of age. If you're looking down the line to the future, you've got to start bringing in one or two youngsters. Now, talking about youngsters, let's get on to the front row side of things, because there's obviously we're a bit thin on the ground. I mean, is it a blessing in disguise that Yanni du Plessis picked up an injury? And do you think he played the final with a broken hand? Because there was talk that he had it. Was it? Okay.
Yeah, so he did have an operation on his hand before the final, so we know he was injured. But was it a blessing in disguise for the Boks that he's out now?
Yeah, listen, Yanni, I think definitely was injured for the final, make no mistake. But, the one thing that really excited me about the Province game, the Western Province side, is Maul when he came on the field. I mean, he was mammoth in a side that was going backwards. He suddenly got a bit of go forward. And everyone forgets he's still a bit of a kid. I mean, he's just turning 22 this year. So, for Maul to go on the tour and for him to possibly get a first choice, which I think he should. I don't know if Heineke is going to throw him that far in the deep end. But, for Maul to go and hopefully get a lot of game time as opposed to a few of the young, older guys, I would prefer to see that because I think he's a future title. There's not even a question. For Argentina as well, I think Argentina has proved a point throughout the season that every time he's on the field, it's so consistent that he's making things happen. So, not the worst thing ever for Jan to be taking a day. I think, we're going to have to start playing rugby without the du Plessis brothers one day.
Yeah, but we've also, you look at the All Blacks over the last 2 or 3 years, they've sent Daniel Carter, Richie McCaw, and now Conrad Smith off on sabbaticals, given them a break. Don't take them overseas in November. Don't let them play Super Rugby to try and get them through to defending the World Cup in 2015, where we, on the other hand, are playing. I mean, Yanni du Plessis must have played 1,000 games of rugby in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, Yanni's had a break since last year already. So, Peter Van der Villiers as well. He's an outstanding rugby player. He needs a break as well. It's exactly what they've done with Richard Jean definitely can make the next World Cup. I think it might be a stretch too far for Yanni, but if you've got to look after guys like Sean, if you want them to take in that side along to that World Cup. I know there are youngsters coming through Jane Serfontein, but a guy like Sean would be able to any World Cup squad.
And then obviously now with, a guy like Jan Serfontein, etc., but Jacques Fourie has put his hand up and said, I want to go and play in England in 2015. Which that bodes well. I mean, this Boks side that's getting on the plane this week, they've got 1,000 test caps between them, which it's the strongest Boks squad that's been put together since 2009, I think, were the figures that we've been bandied around. So it bodes well for us as fans of the game.
No, it does for the tour. And also a guy like Jacques hasn't played much rugby, so he's going to be fresh and ready to go. So, particularly the back is very exciting, and you've got a few youngsters that are still coming through the mix. So we get those young forwards starting to prop things up a lot earlier than perhaps holding on to the guys that are longer in the tooth. I think what a great side we're going to have and potentially take to.
And then the mentoring session that's going to go on with Buckies and Eben and Peter Steff for the next 3 to 4 weeks?
I wouldn't want to be. It's not a place for faint-hearted with those things. But certainly it's going to have those 3 locks going into a test match. So, I'm pretty sure England's pretty happy they're not playing us this time out.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you. I think those 3 might cause a bit of trouble on the field and off the field. I just wanted to go back to the back line. We most likely, well, I'm pretty sure we're going to have Jean de Villiers and Jacques Fourie at 12 and 13. I just think it's a great opportunity for JJ to actually sit behind somebody else that's a lot better and someone that he can learn from, because he hasn't really had that opportunity. We haven't had a 13 for a while, and he's just basically been thrust in there, and he was found wanting in a number of times this year, and I think it'll be a great opportunity for him to grow into the player that everyone, the potential that we see.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Jacques Fourie speaks for himself. I don't think there's a better outside centre in world rugby, even though he's been playing in Japan. I think the Japanese, he's just competitive enough, for the league's competitive enough for him to still keep himself at a top level. So, but yeah, it's sad in a way to see a guy like JJ Evans be thrust on the bench, because he has made a few strides this year. He hasn't been playing against minor teams in the championships, against a couple of the top teams in the world. But it would have been, good to see him perhaps have an opportunity against the likes of what happens overseas. That said, a guy like Jacques Fourie, he's got a leadership and a mentoring role, exactly like Jean de Villiers has. So, for 2 youngsters like we have with JJ and Surfete and Slim on our bench, I don't think we can go wrong.
And then carrying on the talking about the youngsters coming through and the mix that we've got in the squad currently. The season that Scurra and Tabeni had, I mean, I earmarked him probably in Super Rugby and said if he carries on like this, he could be a Bok for the future. I didn't expect it to happen this quickly, but when you look at the ages of Adrian Strauss and Bismarck du Plessis, like you say, we're going to have to be playing rugby without those guys sooner rather than later. And Scurra and Tabeni just seems to tick so many boxes in terms of his work rate, his tackle count, his ball carries. Okay, he had an off final with the line-out throwing, but in that game in Durban in the rain, he didn't miss a jumper. You excited about the prospects of him?
Yeah, again, I think people must underestimate what Heineken is doing. And we did with the squad for the championship. He brought a lot of youngsters in who never even played. I mean, Peter Steff spent all that time on the box. He didn't even sniff a rugby ball as far as test time's concerned. So I wouldn't expect Scurra to be having much game time over there. But it's the experience of it. It's mixing in the same circles. It's going to those test matches. Those atmosphere, particularly in Europe, are very different to what we experienced down there. So that sort of experience has been valuable for the young man, and I think he deserves this chance and opportunity. I think it's an unbelievable season. He's a young guy. For his development and process going forward, a very good thing that Heineken is doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I mean, we're under no illusions that the likelihood of him getting on the park in any of the tests is minimal, barring an injury probably. But yeah, like you say, to get him out there, get him used to the structures, the environment, the experience. And fully deserved. He's, probably one of the standouts for Province all season, really.
No, he certainly has, and there's been a few others that youngsters from Province that have come through, and the 21s are exceptionally well. So you might see 1 or 2 of those players forcing their way into, Springbok or emerging Springbok mix as well. So I think Province will decide winning the final. They can't be negative about anything. I think the rest of the age group structures did exceptionally well throughout the season. The only team that really came unstuck with the under-19s and perhaps the main side in the final. But, the final's a one-off game, and sometimes those one-off games can go against you.
Rob, just moving away off our shores into what's happening with the internationals, more focused on this weekend. So Australia are playing England in Twickers. What do you think's going on? Do you think I've heard a lot of the senior players in Australian setup talk quite highly of what's happening with Ewan McKenzie. Stephen Moore's been one of them. Obviously, he's made some really, really big calls by dropping Horwell and as the captain, and there was talk that he could possibly not start this weekend if Rob Simmons wasn't injured. But what do you think is going on there? Do you think the guys are good, or England just going to be too strong for Australia?
I think Australia going to a few people. I mean, we all forget those dark years when Jake White started with the Springboks and we lost to Ireland, we lost to Lansdowne Road. So, I think Ewan McKenzie's fortunate enough now to have a ship behind him where he didn't do so well, although they did end fairly well. I know that the game against the All Blacks wasn't the best result. And its side has developed throughout those games. So, England, they're never easier to Twickenham, but certainly Australia, the Southern Hemispheres, I think, do have the edge over the Northern Hemisphere sides at the moment, albeit bar probably Wales, which we're going to be facing next weekend. But, the Aussies, I think, can cause a few surprises, and very rarely do they travel poorly to the UK.
I actually hadn't even contemplated the fact that it's that Wales Bok game is probably the standout one on this in this November internationals, particularly from a South African perspective as well. And just in terms of what's going on in EP and PE rugby, I mean I wouldn't say disappointing. Well, maybe disappointing is the word to use. Missing out on staying in Super Rugby and then missing out on the opportunity to get promotion up to Currie Cup. Are the structures still in place? Everyone, the goal and the focus still there?
Most definitely. I mean, it's probably been a bit of a chance to get the closet, so to speak. A lot of the players we brought back for Super Rugby, not all of them were homegrown talent. There's a big push from with the union and even from NMMU for Varsity Cup to use as much homegrown talent as possible and build something sustainable going forward till 2016. So we're working very closely with Brett Johnson from NMMU with Varsity Cup for academy players and then some younger players get an opportunity to develop there. And obviously a big focus will be on the Vodacom Cup and then pushing into Currie Cup afterwards. But despite what people it's all about doing and I think we've been very positive about what's happening and what has happened. And there's an announcement on the 6th of whether or not we're going to get into Currie Cup next year. Now that seems more positive this time around, but certainly from the things behind the scenes, it's all go forward from there. No one's looking back and wondering what if.
Okay, so Griquas might also get a reprieve then, along with yourselves.
Yeah, Griquas might get that reprieve as well. So that's a positive. I think the biggest positive is actually for the Lions themselves, because they've only now got one season in Super Rugby, so they have to play a promotion relegation if that vote doesn't go through. And for them, it's exactly the same place the Kings were in. You can't get sponsors, you can't guarantee players for longer periods of time.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult to build a squad in a unit over, and for the Lions, I think it's more important, perhaps even the Kings who are still trying to develop till 2016.
Awesome. Well, Robbie, it's been great to chat to you again. Enjoy the rugby this weekend. I personally think England might just give the Wallabies a bit of a rout with the drama coming out of captains being changed, etc. But Sharky's shaking his head at me saying I'm dreaming.
Well, I certainly hope not. No one likes those problems.
That's the bottom line. Would you rather the English or the Aussies? And I'm sorry, but the Aussies must go and give it horns.
It's a flip of the coin, but I might have to go Aussies.
Rob, thanks so much, Kay. I appreciate the chat. We do appreciate the chat again, and it's always a pleasure picking your rugby brain, and look forward to catching up for a couple of quiet Guinness sometime.
Absolutely, look forward to it. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Robbie Kempson.
Well, there you have it. Quite some interesting views, and he was a little bit gutted that Province didn't take it. I think his heart's still here. Damn it. But some great insight into that. And you mentioned that the Springboks have got over 1,000 caps between all of them traveling
on the dot.
Oh, really?
1,000 on the dot.
They have 1,000 caps traveling with them at this away.
It would have been more if Yanni had gone, but
yeah, obviously. But looking forward to it, and we just need to blood the right guys in the right positions, and shush, I can't wait.
Well, let's just before we go to a break and when we come back, we'll talk Bokke and internationals and squads and stuff in a little bit more depth. Just quickly on the ITM Cup, because we didn't touch too much on this obviously last week because we weren't here. But in the semi-finals in the Premiership, Wellington thrashed Counties Manukau 6-2. And then Canterbury got up over Auckland 56-26, 7-2. bit of a hiding there. Tasman thumped Southland, and Hawke's Bay got up over Otago in the championship semis. In the final of the championship, how is this for heartbreaking?
Yeah.
Tasman 26, Hawke's Bay 25. 3 tries apiece. Hawke's Bay score a try in the 78th minute, and Aya West, who was in the junior All Black side that lost the Junior World Cup final to the Bokke at Newlands 2 years ago, missed the conversion in the 79th minute to hand Tasman the title.
He's had such a great season for Hawke's Bay as well. He's tiny. He's not exactly a big guy, and he's
Ginger
playing,
Maori.
Yes, and he's playing at 10, and he really dominates and dictates the game. He's had a really good season, and it's heartbreaking, as Robbie said, talking about the guys in the final. It is only one game. It's just unfortunate that it happened to be that one.
And then on to the Premiership final, and Wellington had been the team to beat all season, and they got beaten.
And they did.
Yeah, 4 tries to 1. Canterbury picked up their 6th consecutive ITM Premiership title
in a row. Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's what consecutive means.
Yeah,
I'll get there. But this is my mind. My mind was on this next statement. Wellington were very much in the game they were still in with a shot for probably about 20 minutes to go. I can't remember exactly, but they were still in with a shot long into the second half. And then Canterbury just changed gears. That's what I keep saying. Canterbury, the Bulls, those two sides you must keep out of knockouts. You must keep out of, because they've bred it into them. The guys know how to play knockout rugby. It's not new. They don't get starstruck by the fact that they're playing in a final. So
on to the Currie Cup, and a big congratulations to the Pumas. They've won promotion in the promotion relegation series.
And did they win well?
Yeah. They beat Griquas comfortably in the second game to top the log, because they picked up a loser's bonus point in the first game and obviously outscored them quite dramatically in the second game. They're into the Currie Cup proper next year for Jimmy Stonehouse and company. But as Robbie Kempson was saying, there's another meeting of the hierarchy of South African rugby in the next few weeks, and it could well be that EP along with Griquas will be given Currie Cup spots, which makes the cost of a playoff relegation competition just like, why did we bother? And then, as we said, congratulations to the Sharks. They started the season with a shock loss to the now relegated Griquas in Durban. That was the first game of the season for everybody. Ended it with a systematic dismantling of Western Province at Newlands on Saturday. Lambie was imperious. Peter Steph-Totoy was colossal. 33-19. Province were never in the lead. Alistair Couture was clueless.
I do agree with you, and I actually wanted to run this past Robbie. Just in terms of the structure and the sort of game planning and how it didn't change. It was quite evident quite early on. Well, it was relatively close come half time, but things needed to change, and after half time they did not. And maybe they were too far behind. Maybe their heads were out of the game already. Maybe the Sharks had their tails up. I'm not sure. But
look, there was no composure from Province. There were their execution of everything they did was all over the place. They looked rattled, and they played like they were rattled. But again, I mean, you can't take. And the other thing to keep in mind is kudos to Jonathan Kaplan in terms of his career, because first man to 50 tests as a referee, first man to 100 Super Rugby games as a referee. I think he's refereed over 160 Currie Cup games. So he's retired. Out of that, Marius van der Westhuizen, who's been on the 7th circuit, is a Super Rugby referee for next year. And sadly, Rasta Raschavenge isn't, because he obviously didn't meet the "you must be this high to be a Super Rugby referee" training.
That's unfortunate, because his quality. He'll run on the 7th circuit. This maybe that's the reasoning behind it. Maybe that he'll stay on the 7s for one more year. But look forward. He's growing. I'm very impressed with his refereeing. He communicates exceptionally well, and he doesn't take any cuck from nobody.
And then congratulations to the Sharks. And I mean, it would have been tough for the Sharks to lose 3 Currie Cup finals in a row. Said no Western Province supporter ever. But yeah, they've played in 4 in a row. They've now won 2 out of the last 4, and I think it's their 7th title since they won their first one in 1990. And they did it in style, let's be honest. There was an intercept try, but the rest of the game, and Patrick Lambie just let Mornay Stay and Heineke Meyer know that I can too kick drop kicks.
Lambie was great. He was. It was good to see him confident again. I think they need that, and he just needs more game time, in my opinion. So we'll hopefully Heineken Mail will give him some more.
We're going to play a little bit of Def Leppard, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the games this weekend in terms of internationals, the Driving Maul Super Brew pool, and the box squad. You listen to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll be back now. Welcome back to Driving Maul. Geez, my blood was about to run cold. Like you pick songs and you end up with the Def Leppard ballad, probably the only one they made, when that was not what I was looking for. Anyway, on to November internationals, folks, and get involved. Go find the Driving Maul pool. It's called, the name of the pool is actually hashtag Driving Maul on Super Brew. We've got 30 gigs of internet data to give away every week for the Yellow Cap winner. Compliments of CyberSmart. Terms and conditions.
What an unbelievable prize.
No, it's outstanding. Terms and conditions do apply, kids. You have to be in South Africa and you have to have an active ADSL line. Otherwise, it defaults to the... In fact, maybe we'll just roll it over week on week until we get a winner. That's a much better idea.
That's a bit harsh. I mean, give the guy opportunity to claim his prize at least. But yeah, that's a great one. So where's that on Super Brew?
On Super Brew. The pool name is hashtag Driving Maul, and I think the pool code is ErgsGrow.
They've got some great codes there. Love that stuff. I'll get punting on that sharpish, and we can hopefully get enough pool together.
It starts this weekend, 7 a.m. New Zealand are taking on Japan, South African time, on Saturday morning, and then obviously the big one, England versus Australia. And then
excuse me for interrupting, does it not start with the New Zealand Maori taking on Canada, which is tomorrow night?
Sunday.
Okay.
That one's on Sunday. No, I was about to get there. And then it is Canada versus a very watered down Canada versus the Maori, because the Canadians have not been released from all the European clubs, while the Maori contains 6 fully fledged All Blacks and a host of well-known names. We'll get onto that in a second. The first game, as we said, New Zealand versus Japan. They've handed some debuts out to one or two players. The first one being Frank Halai. Frank the Tank gets his first run in an All Black jersey, as well as the Big Bird, Dominic Bird at lock with Jeremy Thrush. All new lock partnership. I think Thrush has only played 2 or 3 games himself. Bowden Barrett at fullback. Interesting move. So he's just having a look at his midweek team for the World Cup, basically.
Barrett's great at fullback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The side, in case you missed it, is Barrett at fullback, Charles Piatow on the wing, Ben Smith and Francis Saili are the centre pairing, Frank Halai, Daniel Carter, Tawera Barlow, Richie McCaw, Sam Kane, Stephen Luatua, Dominic Bird, Jeremy Thrush, Ben Franks, Dane Coles, White Crockett. On the bench, Andrew Hoare, Jeffrey Tamaga Allen, the Chiefs player, he could also make his debut. Charlie Farmoina, Brody Retallick, Luke Whitelock could also get a debut coming off the bench. Aaron Smith, Tom Taylor, and Ryan Crotty. For the Japanese, and Sharky says, don't you dare read all their names. I don't think I could anyway. But there are 1 or 2 guys that have played Super Rugby, including the hooker Shotohori, who was with the Rebels. And Fumiaki Tanaka, the number 9, was with the Highlanders this season. And then there's 1 or 2 very Japanese names floating around in here as well, like Luke Thompson and Michael Broadhurst.
Yes, you do.
I can't see the Kiwis getting anything less than a 50-point win here.
Yeah, they've got a pretty solid side, even though they've got some new guys in there. But the guys they've got there are great. Again, and I know I mentioned a week in, a week out, I just think Dan Coles is he should do well against the Japanese. However, the Japanese are not shit up front. So
sure, but
I'm looking forward to seeing what's happened. But New Zealand will need to get a proper hooker come World Cup.
Yeah. And let's also keep in mind that Japan have shipped 145 and 87 points in the 2 games they've played against the All Blacks, and both times they were against second-string All Black teams in World Cups.
They are gonna get a beating. I think the guys to definitely watch out. The up front, the loose forwards are gonna dominate for the All Blacks. But where it is gonna come is gonna be the combinations between Dan Carter, I think Ben Smith, and Bowden Barrett. I just think those 3 are gonna dictate and just run absolute holes through these guys.
Your prediction, Sunshine?
Ah, yes, we're doing that. New Zealand by 42.
55. And that's probably just giving too much credit to Japan, to be honest. On to the Cook Cup, because it is England versus Australia at Twickenham, just to get the November internationals off and running. And obviously the England team, what's his name, the coach, Stuart Lancaster, he had to go and find a new centre pairing because his first choices in the form of Manu Tuilagi and Brad Barrett are out for most of the season. He's picked a side. Mike Brown's been floating around at wing for most of the times that I've seen him in an England side, but he does come in at his preferred position of fullback. Chris Ashton is the other wing. Joel Tompkins, 2 years after switching codes, is the outside centre along with Billy Twelvetrees. Marlon Yard on the other wing. Do you know what Marlon's dad's surname is?
Yardy boy? I don't know.
Scotland.
No.
I shit you not.
That is spectacular. I just want to...
Scotland Yard.
That is unbelievable. His grandparents have got the best sense of humor ever. But I tell you one thing, and I know that we've been witnessing Mike Brown in a wing jersey for England. But the reason being is because Good for Saracens was playing fullback, and he doesn't fit into wing as well. There are two fullbacks that are playing there, and obviously Good's not playing. He's not even on the bench. No, because I got Ben Foden on the bench to cover fullback. But Mark Brown is sensational at fullback. Plays for Harlequins. He's very, very dangerous runner with the ball, so it should be quite fun.
And then obviously Owen Farrell holds onto the 10 jersey. Lee Dixon gets a start at 9 ahead of Ben Youngs, which robbed us of two sets of brothers being on the field for England at one time. You were saying in
117, if I'm not mistaken, yes.
And you've kind of got to hope that when they do the subs, they don't
do it properly.
They do it properly so that they at least have all four of them on the park for 60 seconds.
I must be honest, Lee Dixon's been very, very quiet for me. He's slipped under the radar is the way I should rather put it. I haven't really been keeping an eye on him. I really thought that Danny Kerr would still be in the mix. He hasn't been excelling for Quins, and Quins haven't had a great start to the season, but I still think he offers the X factor.
And then the pack is Billy Vunipola, Chris Robshaw captaining the side, Tom Wood, Courtney Laws, Joe Launchbury, Dan Cole, Tom Youngs, Marco Vunipola, Dylan Hartley back from his long suspension and missing out on the Lions tour, Joe Marler, Dave Wilson, don't know too much about, Dave Atwood, Ben Morgan, Ben Youngs, Toby Flood, Ben Foden. They are taking on what looks like a fairly stable Australian side on paper, except for the drama of another leader of the Wallabies story with James Horwill stripped of the captaincy today, and as we said earlier, probably would have missed out on selection if Rob Simmons hadn't tweaked a knee in a minicab. Apparently, haven't quite figured out how he did that. But for the Wallabies, Israel Folau at fullback, Adam Ashley Cooper continues on the wing, Kurandrani and Matt Tamua are the centre pairing again. Nick Cummins, the Honey Badger, comes in. Quade Cooper from It's a Toxic Environment to I'm the Vice Captain, and he puts the Vice back in Vice Captain. Will Genia, Ben Moen, the new skipper of the leader of the Wallabies, Michael Hooper, Scott Fardy, James Horwell, Setulaki Tamani, Ben Alexander, Stephen Ward, James Slipper. Very
solid
stable,
run of the mill.
That's no real surprises there aside from the captaincy thing. And then Christian Elefano, Bernard Foley gets another run on the off the bench. I just have a suspicion that England are going to take advantage of a Wallaby side that has only managed one win this season, which was a good win against the Argentines, and I think England will get up by about 12.
Okay, my 4 players to watch out, 2 per side. I think you got to watch out for Courtney Laws. And Billy Vunipola, the 8th man for England, and Courtney Laws playing at lock. Laws had a great season, and club rugby just needs to transfer that through. And then for Australia, I think you definitely got to watch out for Matt Tamua. I think he's going to come into his own, and obviously Michael Hooper is going to be his usual nuisance self. I think Australia are going to take us by 3.
And then the dark horse in terms of predictions, because there's always one on Super Brew. The Maori All Blacks are taking on Canada in Toronto on Sunday. They played each other a year ago almost to the day, and the Maori won 32 or 33-19. Canada could be under the cosh, though. Only 2 players that currently play in Europe have been released by their club, and both of them come from Ospreys. The rest are missing, including Jamie Cudamore, Jeb Sinclair, Dietia Vanamava, are not playing.
I think it's a great opportunity for Canada. They've qualified for the World Cup. It's a great opportunity for them to blood some youngsters and put some guys through. Even though they'd really like to win at home and they're missing a lot of their old firm, but they're up against a mean side.
Well, indeed. I mean, let's just run through some of the names that are in this Maori side: Hika Elliott, Corey Flynn, Ben Afiaki, Jared Oyata, Joe Wheeler, Luke Braid, Elliot Dixon, Blade Thompson, Jamison Goodson Park, Perry Wepu, Ohio West, Tim Bateman, Charlie Nagatai, Jackson Willison, Kurt Baker, Zach Guilford, Robbie Robinson, Andre Taylor. Just to name a few.
They've got 5 All Blacks in there. 6.
Yeah.
My bad. 6 All Blacks in their side. I mean, and they play every year. They've got a side together. They play a bit, so it's going to be. I'm worried.
And then a nice little interesting aside is Canadian coach Kieran Crowley and Maori coach Colin Cooper played together when they were players and were coach and assistant coach for Taranaki in New Zealand before moving on with their coaching careers.
It's going to be fun.
Indeed. And my suspicion is that the Maori will be too strong for Canada's second stringers and should win it by about 28 points.
I got the Maoris by 21.
And that is that, Chick Ride. Folks, we'll have this up for you tomorrow on YouTube. You can go and find the Loud Radio YouTube channel. It will be there. We'll tweet it as well. Thanks very much to Robbie Kempson for joining us and sharing his thoughts on everything that's going on in South African rugby and world rugby. Sharky, again, congratulations to you and all your other black and white as dynamite.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. It was good to be back on the show. It was nice winning at Newlands as well. It was quality. Listen, to be completely honest with you, the game was, and we were discussing it off air, was as tight as anything, and leading up to the game, and you know, Province will learn from it. They've got a great core of players. Most of them will hang behind, and let's see what's happening in terms of Super Rugby next year.
Indeed. Folks, you've been listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We will catch you next week if I can find a cohort, because Sharky's off gallivanting again somewhere next week. Otherwise, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time to dissect the Wales test that would have been played in a week's time. Anyway, catch you later.